ఇంటర్మీడియట్ విద్యారంగంలో అగ్రగామి మన NSR ఇంపల్స్ ఎడ్యుకేషన్ ఇన్స్టిట్యూషన్. ఐఐటి జేఈఈ అయినా నీట్ అయినా తిరుగులేని విద్యా సంస్థ NSR ఇంపల్స్.
Hello students, now let us continue with the living world concept. Now in the chapter of living world we are in the discussion about the characteristics we have studied. In the characteristics we studied about growth, metabolism and cellular organizations, all the parameters we have studied, and we were in the discussion about taxonomy, the four components of taxonomy. What are they? Characterization, identification, nomenclature and classification. So if you look at in that, we were in the discussion about nomenclature. What is nomenclature? The process of giving name or process of naming the organism itself is called as what? Nomenclature. Now here we are going to discuss now about a binomial nomenclature. You are going to study about a binomial nomenclature. So when you take the binomial nomenclature, now according to ICBN, what is ICBN? International Center for Botanical Nomenclature. Now we have certain rules and regulations. Let us discuss one by one. So here if you look at these scientific names or the biological names, scientific names originated from Latin words and written in italics. So scientific names, they generally are originated from Latin. That means Latin, they are Latin words, or we say they are Latin words. All scientific names are nothing but actually they are Latin words and they are written in italics. Meaning what? When they are handwritten, they are handwritten, should be underlined. So this is the continuation of this. When scientific names are handwritten, means when you are writing the concept, when you are writing the theory part on the paper, when you are writing, you need to underline the scientific name. Or if it is printed, if it is in printed form, it should be kept in bold and should be written and in italics. So you have to make the bold. So I think you know that very well. When you take the printout, a printed copy, in the printed copy scientific name should be bold and it should be written in, it should be kept in the font size of italics. Okay. Now apart from this, according to binomial nomenclature, you know, scientific, I am talking about scientific name, I am speaking about a scientific name. Scientific name has, as we studied for the last class, we have two words. What are they? Genus and other one is nothing but a species. Okay. So we have two words. What are the two words? We have genus and species. So genus is nothing but the first word. As we have discussed earlier, it should be the first letter in this. First letter should be a capital letter. So as you know, binomial nomenclature, meaning bi means two. There are two words. There are two words. What are they? First word itself is genus, as we have discussed for the last class. In the first word, first letter should be a capital letter. Similarly, second word, as we discussed very clearly for the last class, second word, in that again a first letter should be a small letter. A first letter should be a small letter. So we have to take such kind of precautions. For example, if you take, and apart from this, I will let you know, I will give you example. Apart from this, scientist name scientist name, the scientist name who identified the plant, should be written in abbreviated form, at the end of scientific name, There is nothing here. What should be the next rule? According to ICBN, the next rule is a scientist name. Who is the scientist who identified the plant? The scientist name means the scientist who identified that particular plant should be written in abbreviated form. It should be written in abbreviated form, meaning in short form, where it should be written at the end of scientific name. This is quite easy, this point to remember. I will just give you an example. For example, if you take Mangifera indica, LINN, meaning linnaeus. So here if you look at, it's, you know that it's a scientific name for what? Common name is mango. We all know it very well. Mango, scientifically it is referred as Mangifera indica. After we write the scientific name, the biological name or scientific name, who identified this plant, who has given the name for this plant, means the scientist who identified this plant should be written in abbreviated form. Abbreviated form is in short form. Mangifera indica, at the end of scientist's name it is written as LINN. LINN is the short form, it is an abbreviated form. That says what? What is LINN says? LINN says that the scientist's name is Linnaeus. Okay. So, Mangifera indica Linn means it talks about the scientist's name in abbreviated form, Linnaeus. So, in this case if you look at Mangifera is a genus name and indica is a species name. Should be starts with capital letter. Genus, the first word starts with capital letter. Species, the second word starts with the small letter. So, I told you even very clearly the most important questions which arises, who has given, who introduced binomial nomenclature means answer the scientist name Caspar Bohin. Who proposed, who popularized binomial nomenclature means Carolus von Linnaeus. Okay. So, let us continue furthermore here. Now, apart from this, if you look at other rules and regulations, right. So, binomial nomenclature, still we are in the discussion about binomial nomenclature. So, there is a concept called as tautonym. There is a concept called as what? Tautonym. What is meant by tautonym? Tautonym meaning the genus and the species names are same. Genus name and species names are similar. Okay. So, if you look at in this case, genus name is also same, species name also same. If both genus and species names are same, it is referred as tautonym. The best example for this we can take example like NASA. Okay, so this is NASA. I think you studied about NASA, right? In zoology, this is an example, right? NASA. Here, genus name is also NASA, species name is also NASA. Similarly, if you take plant example, Pyrus. Earlier, apple they used to call Pyrus, meaning Pyrus genus name, Pyrus is also species name. Earlier people used to call like this, but now this is got changed into Pyrus malus. What is Pyrus malus? You all know it very well. This is nothing but apple. Okay. So, Pyrus is nothing but genus name is also Pyrus, species name is also Pyrus. That is itself is called as tautonym, but later it got changed into Pyrus malus. Now we call it got changed into malus today, that is a scientific name for apple, right. So here, so these are nothing but certain rules and regulations we need to follow according to ICBN. What is ICBN? International Center for Botanical Nomenclature, and we follow the rules given for binomial nomenclature. So here genus and species and scientific names are originated from the Latin and written when they are writing in handword, you need to underline. When you take the printed copy, you need to have italics. And you know the scientist name, it should be written at the end of the scientific name, LINN, meaning it says that name of the scientist. So wherever end of the scientific name, if you find LINN abbreviated form, it talks about the scientist name called as Linnaeus. So if both genus and species names are similar, that is referred as tautonym, You can have an examples like NASA, Pyrus, but later Pyrus is got changed into Pyrus malus, right. Now let us continue further. Let us continue with classification. Now, when we take the classification in taxonomy, what do we say? Characterization. First thing is we take this sheet and we will start writing all the characters. Then followed by identification. With those characters, we will try to identify. So, when you identify, automatically you will try to give the name, it is called nomenclature. Then followed by classification. What do we say here? So, here the organisms, what we say, identified organisms are kept in convenient categories. What's the meaning of convenient categories here? So, when we try to arrange them, it will belong to which family, it belong to which class, it belong to which order. So, when we keep them in a convenient category, itself is called as what? Classification. So, if you look at, for example, if you take for example rice itself is called as a taxa. Wheat itself is called as a taxa. That means each unit in classification itself is called as taxa, or itself is called as taxon. Each basic unit, when we write the, what you say, when you write the category, when you keep the organism in a particular family called Solanaceae, in a particular order, in a particular division, in a particular kingdom called plant kingdom, when you keep them, each unit itself is called as taxa, or itself is called as taxon. That means when I say rice plant, rice is a taxa. When I say wheat, wheat is a taxa. When I keep anything hibiscus plant, that is a taxa, right. So, if you take in this Oryza sativum, Oryza is a genus, it is a taxa, sativum is a species, it is a taxon. So each unit in classification itself is referred with what is called as taxa. So according to taxa, we make what are called as taxonomic categories. Accordingly, we make what are called as taxonomic categories. So what are these taxonomic categories here? So if you take here taxonomic categories, very clearly I will write down. So when we see the convenient categories, what are these convenient categories? So if you look at it, starts from species. So here if you look at it, starts from species, that is basic, then followed by genus, right, and then followed by it has its own family, then it has its own order, then class, right. So each one itself is called as a category, class, then finally it come under division, and then we fall what is called as kingdom. So now I hope identified organisms are kept in convenient categories. These are the categories. Okay. So whatever the plant which I know the genus and species, then what is the next character I look for? It belong to which family, it belong to which order, then it belong to which class, it falls in which division, and finally it belong to what kingdom. Kingdoms means it may be a plant kingdom or it may be an animal kingdom. So in this case each one itself is called taxa. This is a taxa. This itself is called as a taxa, or we call a taxon. So each category, each unit, each category which we find in this itself is called as a taxa. So here if you take, this is taxa or taxon. When you keep arrangement of all taxas, all taxons in a particular sequence, then that forms what is called as a taxonomic categories. Now let us study about a taxonomic categories. Now whenever you get the taxonomic categories, in this case, whenever you get the question that a basic unit of classification, a basic unit of classification, basic unit of classification, whenever this question comes, then it is nothing but species. This is a question, a very important point whichever you have to remember. Mostly we have the possibilities getting in the form of a question. What is that? A basic unit of classification. What is the basis for the entire categories to write? The basic is nothing but it is always a species. Okay. So here if we talk about, then again you need to be very careful. Suppose if the question is what is the unit of taxonomic category or taxonomic classification, unit of taxonomic category or taxonomic classification, if this is the question, then you have to write take the option as taxa or taxon. See, generally people will have a confusion here. Whenever the question is, it is given that a basic unit of classification, it is nothing but species. So in the taxonomic classification, if you take basis, what is with what we start from the characters, if you look at that is species. Suppose if the question is unit of taxonomic categories or classification, then you have to choose what is called taxa, or we call it as taxon. Okay. So this is nothing but what we call classification. Now let us continue the concept with what is called taxonomic categories. Let us continue our discussion with taxonomic categories. What are taxonomic categories? We say species, genus, family, order, class, division and kingdom. This all will come under taxonomic categories. So when you say that dog is existing, animal, elephant is existing, or something we say snake, every living organism, when you talk about its category itself is called as taxa, right. So when identified organisms, after you give name, after you come to know the name of the organism, you will be keeping it convenient categories. Now, if you take each unit of classification is taxa or taxon, they fall in taxonomic categories. Now, whenever the question is a basic unit of classification means species, a unit of taxonomic category or classification is taxa or taxon, meaning what? At any category when you talk about what is a unit means family is a taxa. We say order is a taxa. Class is a taxa. At any category if you look at each strategy, each one itself is called as a taxa. But basis means this all will arise from where? From the basic unit means then answer will be species. Okay. So, now let us continue with what is called a taxonomic categories. Let us continue with that. Taxonomic categories means what all we have to discuss? We have to study now each and every taxa in detail along with the examples. Now, we have to focus on discussing each and every category. Taxonomic categories. What are taxonomic categories under this? We have to start with the basic one called as species. We have to start with the very basic one called as what? Species. Now, if you look at in this taxonomic category, if you look at, let me give you an important statement here, then we can go with the taxonomic categories. What are the important statement? What is a very important statement which we need to remember, which will get it in the questions like assertion and reason, or they will try to see that what is the incorrect statement. In that you need to look for the statements. Some of the statements in the very first chapter are very important. So, now I am going to tell you one of the statement very important. What is that? Taxonomic categories are merely biological entities, and not morphological aggregates, What is the meaning of this? Very important statement. Sometimes in the same statement what they will give you, taxonomic categories are not merely biological entities and are biological aggregates, then that becomes wrong statement. What is the one thing you have to identify? Not. If not is removed here, if it is placed here, that becomes wrong statement. So, you need to clearly look for the clear statement what is given. Now, here taxonomic categories are merely biological entities. Merely biological entities means what? If you talk about biological entity, what is biological entity? A living organism. If you take in the living organism, we need to talk about structure, function, growth, metabolism, reproduction, cellular organization, consciousness. All characteristics we are going to study. If you think they are biological entity, as a living organism it exists, then we will start looking for characters. We go for identification, we give the name and nomenclature, and finally we keep it in which category, classification. Right? They are biological entities, not morphological aggregates. Morphologically, if I say that okay, a hand part if I placed it, okay, leg part if I placed it, and body structure, stomach if I place, that becomes an organism. No, if all are interrelated, I told you, tissue and what you call cells. If all cells are placed at one place, it is not called tissue. When all cells show interactions among themselves, then only it is called as tissue. Simply if you place cells at one place, it cannot be called as a tissue, right. Similarly, if you take all morphological parts, aggregate means they join, they combine, meaning they placed at one place. Aggregate means grouping, joining, combining. So, when all morphological parts if you just combine them, Aggregate them ante all you are keeping at one place. Aggregation means keeping them at one place, right. If you keep morphological parts, if you place it at one place, does you think that become a biological entity? Does you think that become a living organism? Definitely no, right. So, taxonomic categories are applied to keeping keeping a living organism in a particular convenient category. It talks about biological entities, it speaks about living organisms, but not morphological aggregates. It does not speak about tissues, if they placed at one place it forms the organ, no. Tissues, when they show interaction, then only it form the organ, right. Morphologically, if you keep it in one place, for that taxonomic categories are not applied. Taxonomic categories are applied for purely a living organism, purely for a biological entity, not for simply aggregation of morphological parts or morphological characters. That is a very, very important statement. Now, this statement you have to keep it in your mind. Now, let us continue further in this case. Now, if you look at the statement is very, very important. Now, I want complete space, so I am erasing that statement. I hope you have noted down. Now, let us talk about species. You know, the species again lead to formation of genus. So, for every scientific name, we include two words according to binomial nomenclature. What do we say? The scientific name has two words, genus and species, right. Then we have what is called as a family, then order, then we have class, again I am writing division, then kingdom. What do you call this? This is called as taxonomic hierarchy. This is called as taxonomic hierarchy. Hierarchy, or we call hierarchy, meaning taxonomic categories. Taxonomic hierarchy meaning species, genus, and together fall in a particular family. A family will fall in a particular order, and order will fall in a particular class, division, kingdom. A group of genus together fall in family, group of families, group of related families fall in order, a group of different orders with few similar characters fall in class, a group of different classes with few similar characters are placed in division. That means when you say, we already have studied, species is nothing but basic unit with which we start taxonomic hierarchy or taxonomic category here. Now, this shows highest number of similar characters, highest number of similar characters. Highest number of similar characters means what? When I take a group of organisms, when I place it in species, they have more similar characters, meaning the organisms which has more similar characters or which has exactly ditto Xerox similar characters are placed in species. Definitely species will have more closely resemblance. Resemblance means what? They have more number of similar characters. So, the species is referred as, actually the species is referred as a lowest taxa. Species actually it is referred as what? Lowest taxa, meaning what? A basic unit. So, actually it is referred as a lowest taxa. It is referred as lowest taxa. Whenever you get the question that which is called a lowest taxa means species. Now, as you go up, kingdom, kingdom is referred as highest taxa. Kingdom itself is referred as what? A highest taxa. Lowest taxa when you get the question, that is species. Highest taxa when you get the question, that is kingdom. But what is the other thing, very, very important one? This all possibility questions are there. Question Q means question, right? Even this is the possibility of getting a question. Another one is, even though kingdom is considered as a highest taxa, but it shows lowest number of similar categories or lowest number of similar characters. Getting me, right? These are possibility of the getting questions. That means what? As you move from species to kingdom, number of similar characters, number of similar characters decreases. Meaning what here? As you move from species to kingdom, you are moving from where? Species, where it shows highest number of similar characters. When you move from species to kingdom, when it comes to kingdom, number of similar characters becomes very less. That means when you go in ascending order means what? Small to big. Smaller one is species, bigger one is kingdom. When you go in ascending order, what happens here? Number of similar characters decreases. Very carefully you have to look for the statement in the question. So very important. Have a possibility of getting in the form of a question. What you have to look for question? Here we are speaking about ascending order. Here we mainly speak about what? Ascending order. As you go from lower to higher. What is the lowest one? Species. What is the higher one? Kingdom. When you go from species to kingdom, number of similar characters decreases. For example, sometimes they will give the question that descending order. So, arrow mark I kept like this, right, from small to big. Sometimes the question will be on downward. That means downward arrow mark speaks about what? Descending order. So, when it is placed in descending order, then what it starts? Kingdom, then it ends with species. In descending order, number of similar characters increases. They get increases. Why do they get increased here? Because we are coming from where to where? We are coming from where to where? We are coming from kingdom to and species. Kingdom is the highest to taxa. Species is the lowest to taxa. So, if you take the down the arrow mark here, down the arrow mark means from where to where we have? We have arrow mark from kingdom to species. Down the arrow mark means descending order. Number of similar characters increases. Sometimes to make you all to confuse here, in the statements they will give dissimilar characters, not the similar characters, dissimilar characters. As per the question, guys, you have to choose the options carefully, because in our competitive exam of NEET we have multiple choices and statements will be given. They will ask you to find out the correct statement, they will ask you to find out the incorrect statement. When you know the each and every line so clearly in the textbook, then only you can make clearly identification of correct and incorrect statement. Sometimes, suppose if the questions are, I will just try to let you know the questions here. For example, if they give the question that number of dissimilar characters, meaning what? Not similar characters, they are different characters, increases as they move from where to where? Dissimilar characters meaning what here? Number of similar characters decreases, meaning number of dissimilar characters increases. That means when we move from species to kingdom, that is ascending order. I am just letting you know what are the different possibility of questions when you say take the taxonomic hierarchy or taxonomic categories. So, on this particular concept, what are the possibility of getting the questions, right? Sometimes to make you all to confuse, the question will be number of dissimilar characters increases as we move from, that is the question, Then from where to where? You have to take ascending order. What is the answer? Species to kingdom, this is the answer. That means number of similar characters decreases, meaning number of dissimilar characters increases automatically, right? Suppose if you take another question, What is the other possibility of other question? Indirectly, simply to make you all to confuse, they may give you that, okay, number of dissimilar characters decreases from as we move from in the taxonomic hierarchy. The number of dissimilar characters decreases as we move from, that is a question. So, what is the option you have to choose? That is kingdom to species. Then you have to choose the option, this will become the answer, kingdom to species, that is descending order. What is descending order? This is descending order. So, in descending order what happens? Number of similar characters increases. Number of similar characters increases meaning what? Number of dissimilar characters decreases automatically, right? So, but based upon the question you are not supposed to confuse whether increases or decreases. You are not supposed to confuse as we are moving from species to kingdom or from kingdom to species. You are not supposed to confuse, right? So, when you say number of similar characters increases meaning, what is the answer for this here? Descending order. Descending order from means from where to where? Kingdom to species, right? Similarly, number of similar characters decreases means this is ascending order, this has an answer, movement from species to kingdom. Similarly, number of dissimilar character increases meaning species to kingdom, ascending order. Number of dissimilar characters decreases meaning we are moving in descending order, that is from kingdom to species. So, how many questions I gave you? There are so many questions in this concept. I have given you all lot many questions. What are the different questions I gave you here? Very clearly, look at once very clearly. This is taxonomic hierarchy. First question, what is the first question? Which is the lowest taxa? That is species. Second question, what is the basic unit of classification? Species. Third question, which is having highest number of similar characters? Species. I gave you 3 questions on species, right? Similarly, fourth question, which is highest taxa? Kingdom. Fifth question, the taxa with lowest number of similar characters, again answer will be kingdom, right? Now, 5 questions are over, let us take this is 6th question. What is the 6th question? Number of similar characters decreases meaning, its question is speaking about ascending order. What is the answer? What could be the option? Species to kingdom, right? 7th question. Now, the number of similar characters increases, meaning the question is speaking about descending order, that is from kingdom to species, right. Next one, number of dissimilar characters increases, 8th or 9th question is this, then the answer will be species to kingdom, again we speak about ascending order. 9th or 10th question, number of similar and dissimilar character decreases, meaning it is moving from kingdom to species. So, nearly 9 to 10 questions I gave you on this concept. It's a very simple concept, but questions will be little twisting and that makes you to a lot of confuse in choosing the options, right. Especially here when group of genus, if you take contributing to the formation of family, here number of similar characters decreases. Family to order, number of similar characters further decreases. When similar characters are decreasing, meaning what? Dissimilar characteristics are increasing. One organism it has more different characters when compared with the other organism, but both are placed in the same category, right. These all questions are very, very important. This is a place where most of the students they will have confusion in choosing the options. So, let us discuss one by one in the taxonomic categories, but make sure that you practice all the statements, then everything will be clear about taxonomic categories. So, here if you look at, for example, if you take the species, there may be so many number of species. For example, a genus has some approximately some 100 species are there. I am giving you example here. For example, if you take a rice plant across the world, approximately we know that there are 200 species. Genus is same, Oryza, but sativum, what is the scientific name of rice? Oryza sativum, Oryza sativum, scientific name for rice. One rice plant has 200 species are there across the world. In different parts of India, in different parts of the world, we have some different variety of the rice plants are growing and they are being cultivated. Altogether there are approximately 200 species of rice varieties are cultivated across the world. So, what you see here, but this all species will have more closely resemble characters, more resemble characters. More resemble characters means what? They have more number of similarities, obviously. They have more number of similarities. So, species has more similar characters when compared with the genus, right. For example, if you take, I will let you know that genus and family if you compare, then we have so many comparisons. Genus, maybe they are different, both will fall to the same family, but they are totally different. Similar characteristics are totally different. So, here this is said highest taxa because we find highest number of similar characters.